Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. It is our second episode for our series, Health and Peace. And today, the issue that we're approaching is an issue that is dear to everyone worldwide. It's important to everyone worldwide. It's been affecting the planet for almost 2 years now. And it's the aftermath of COVID-19. My name is Gerson Damiani. I am from the University of São Paulo, representing here the Global Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution at the University of São Paulo. The Global Institute for Peace has been, for the past 2 years, deeply involved with issues of health, gender, and conflict resolution, especially pertaining to this moment that's so important, so dear to us, about health. Today, we are very honored to have here with us representatives from many different areas of the world. We have Dr. Camilla from London, we have Felipe from Italy, and Gustavo, I believe, is in Brasilia right now. So I will briefly announce our speakers for today. So Dr. Camilla Kamarudin is an experienced general practitioner in London. She has been working in the NHS for the past 20 years. She advocates for intersectionality and a better healthcare and human rights for the underserved community. She won the RCGP, the Royal College of General Practitioners GP of the Year 2019. Gustavo Mendes Lima Santos is the General Manager of Medicines and Biological Products at the Brazilian Health Regulatory Agency, Anvisa. He has a degree in industrial pharmacy from the University of São Paulo, specializing in sanitary surveillance by Fiocruz. He also has a master's degree in toxicology applied to health surveillance by the State University of Londrina. 18 years of experience is as a drug registration assessor and clinical research inspections. And last but certainly not least, Felipe Daubel. He's a member of the Scientific Council at the Global Institute for Peace at the University of São Paulo. And he teaches management at Bocconi University in Milan, a PhD candidate in artificial intelligence and data science, also at the University of São Paulo. His bachelor's is in pharmaceutical engineering and biochemistry, an MBA in business administration. So we have here, with no doubt, a brilliant group of people that we're really looking forward to hearing from you. And our public today is probably very curious to hear also what's going to happen to us in the future. I mean, what has happened to us so far, we know, but we're always curious. How about next week, next year? So I now pass the word to Felipe so that he can conduct the session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gerson. Thank you, Professor Gerson, and all of audience. It's such pleasure. First of all, I have no words. I'm pretty much speechless to say that I'm so privileged on having you guys today. Even because, we are, how the mankind is facing, tough headwinds in conjunction to COVID-19 around the world. And the idea is Felipe is speaking much less as possible and listen to the specialists around the world. So Dr. Camila and Gustavo, once again, we appreciate your precious time. So if you don't mind, we have, such curious, very curious, absolutely curious from listening from you guys from different perspectives. Gustavo from the regulatory agency in Brazil, and also Dr. Camila from another continent, from UK, and with your healthcare experiences. So the idea, if you guys, you might know, we should have some questions coming from the audience. But I would like to start with Dr. Camila. Gustavo, if you don't mind, with a quick questions in terms of your wide perspective and how has the medical community adapted in the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm sorry to go straight to the point. I know you guys, you have such short and precious time, but tell us about what you have been through during this such unprecedented outbreak like COVID-19. Tell me a little bit about the beginning, how the community adapted to the new reality.
Thank you, Felipe, and thank you, University of Sao Paulo for this opportunity for me to speak at this webinar. At the start of the pandemic, we found ourselves living in unprecedented times. It is clear that we have a huge challenge for us healthcare professionals and the wider public. We have never faced it before. It is a war with an enemy with no face and only a name, COVID-19. Initially, though, it seemed like it was a phony war. Most of us healthcare professionals have never heard of coronavirus. So as the wider public, the only thing that we have heard of corona is corona beer. Humor quickly wore thin as the virus raged on. As the battle progressed, we heard of many heroic acts by healthcare professionals all over the world. Who could not forget Dr. Li Wenliang, a Chinese ophthalmologist who first warned the world about a possible outbreak of COVID-19. Sadly, he succumbed to death by COVID-19. His name reminds us of his selfless act, an exemplary doctor, and as a symbol of our fight against COVID-19. He must never be forgotten. And there are many other healthcare professionals who have also sacrificed their life and times to provide continuing care to the wider public. And nor who can forget the frontline medical staff who work tirelessly to save patients from dying and working under dire situations. And these doctors and other healthcare professionals have to make painful decisions who to live or die as they face shortages of ventilators and hospital beds. We healthcare professionals were facing huge challenges in providing care, and we have to adapt very rapidly to new ways of working, many innovative ways, and some untested territories. We have had to abandon bookable appointments and face-to-face appointments and started to triage patients by phone and offer online and also video consultations. Face-to-face consultations are only offered when necessary. We embrace technology to deliver healthcare and finding it very useful. It is quite exhausting and intense, but in the worst of times, we have the chance to see the best of us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can hardly imagine how tough situation you've been through, and you are still going through. A little bit less in UK in comparison to other emerging markets, but this is such, as you told us, unprecedented, consequences and impact, not only in the healthcare, healthcare speaking, but also in general especially for those marketplaces that they are still struggling with other, adversities, how to overcome this horrible outbreak, in which also has left with us a lot of lessons learning. And talked about lessons learning. First of all, Gustavo, and again, you are such a professional in all respect around the world, but tell us a little bit of the challenge you faced and you have been facing in your role at Anvisa in Brazil in comparison to the times before and COVID-19 outbreak. So you have like one situation, one reality before COVID-19, and now we have another completely 360 degrees completed situation. Tell a little bit what has changed on your routine, on the process itself and Anvisa. Tell a little bit about your such unique experience in your life, and for the Brazilians as well, and all the healthcare community globally speaking.
Oh, quite challenging times, yeah, and it changed a lot. What is the perspective? So I work in a regulatory agency, and the regulatory agencies all around the world. And I remember when it started the pandemic declaration, I remember that we were together with other agencies discussing the next steps, and we knew that agencies would be pressured for fast decisions, but maintaining the quality, safety, and efficacy aspects of products that would be offered to our population. So what was different, what is different now than the times before is that in Brazil specifically, but I think it happens all over the world, agencies had to be transparent in order for people to understand how they work and why they do what they do, because otherwise regulatory agencies would appear just like a unnecessary barrier to access vaccines and products. And that is not what is the reality. We learned that we are not alone. Agencies started to rely on each other and to discuss how could we be fast without giving up the technical requirements needed for the approval. But the result and the idea of it was to be more together with other agencies. So we started a lot of procedures in order to trust in other agencies and not necessarily redoing what other agencies were doing, because we knew that the situation was global. Many of the products that came to Brazil were originally from other countries that needed to be inspected and to prove the quality, efficacy, and safety of their products. So I think the pandemic, the lesson learned regarding the being together with all the stakeholders was the most biggest learn in the positive way, of course. Although there is all of the struggle with, especially in Brazil, when we know that the pandemic situation is not controlled, and we haven't been uncontrolled a lot of times because of the circulation of the virus and everything. But I think that the lessons for the agency were good, and we are in a perspective where we know that we have a lot to learn, but the results we have provided were so far really good.
Absolutely. So and also I'm not comparison. Thank you, Gustavo, so much. We have no doubt, undoubtedly, we are doing an incredible, amazing job on addressing the best to the society, and also try to tackle this such horrible outbreak, COVID-19, especially for those layers of society that they don't have access. And this is not a matter of Anvisa subject of matter. It's a matter of public policies and also equality to everyone. And all the emerging markets, they have these challenges when we face such situation like COVID-19. So move on. Thank you, Gustavo, so much. Move on with Dr. Camila. Tell us about the challenge of healthcare during the pandemic with the approach of inequalities. Have you seen any difference in terms of access, in terms of consequence and impact for those ones, that don't have the same access in comparison to other social, social layers, tell us about your experiences since you are so, emerge on the day by day, the healthcare system.
Well, definitely. The pandemic has posed many challenges and affected many people's primary care provisions and well-being. It is causing significant distress, worsening mental health, economic uncertainties, and disruption to access health services. Access to health care is a fundamental human right, and we must never forget that. But the strain from COVID-19 pandemic has caused many changes and caused even more inequalities in healthcare. Due to fears relating to the spread of COVID-19, healthcare providers around the world has been minimizing face-to-face contact with patients. And this definitely has impacted the way how we provide healthcare to the wider public. So, for example, maternity health care has been impacted because there was less face-to-face consultations, and planned elective surgeries have been cancelled. Care in the community has been disrupted, and people with chronic conditions and comorbidities, the care has also been compromised. Not to mention the number of deaths from COVID-19. And many deaths around the world might have been avoided had those individuals been able to access hospital care. This is a very sad thing to have happened. Many people simply fear for their long-term health as well. And the impact of the pandemic has caused even more inequalities in healthcare. In the UK, the difference of the age of death between those who are in for higher socioeconomic status and the lower socioeconomic status is about 19 years. So just imagine that during the pandemic, this has increased even more. So death rates from COVID-19 in the UK are significantly higher in Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. These communities will also be harder hit by the economic effects of the crisis. And disabled people, lower socioeconomic status, older people, people with comorbidities and chronic conditions will also be more affected by COVID-19. And within that narrative of those who from the ethnic minorities and disabled people in the lower socioeconomic status, there is very little discussions about the LGBT communities as well. And the LGBT communities who already face barriers to healthcare throughout their lives are now even more disproportionately affected by the pandemic in many ways. Yes, there are the health inequalities that even worsened during the pandemic.
Right. And do you think, Camila, Dr. Camila, in a short term, if you feel comfortable to with your vision, consider your vast and wide experience on the sector for inequality itself, do you see any light in the tunnel in the near midterm for
yes.
shorten this such difference in inequalities? You mean by UK or in generally speaking?
Well, I can speak mainly from the UK perspective because that's what I am actually, what I know of, but definitely I think, countries all over the world, especially in poorer countries, you could imagine, the impact of COVID-19 and to the healthcare for the people who live in poorer countries, not as able to access healthcare. Just imagine someone lives in the village, for example, kind of thing, there's lockdown, there's no, there's no transport, and how will they be able to access healthcare? They don't even have technology. They're not even access to technology. They don't have computers like us. We are more privileged to have that kind of opportunities. But those people in these countries, people in Africa, for example, who don't have access to technology, their healthcare will be impacted even more. And this is a very sad thing to have happened.
Yeah, definitely. So I appreciate once again. Gustavo, can we get back with you? Yeah, great. So in terms of impact, right, imprinted in the healthcare system locally here and globally, as you also interact with other marketplace and other community, especially the public policies, did you see that we have from the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak until today, so far, any change in the public policies that also helped you or is still in progress that might be useful for the access? Any change in the public policy that may be useful to the society from the perspective of Anvisa, for instance, for sure. We are not talking about politics, okay? As a matter of fact, no politics today. We are just about talk about how we can deliver to the society a better services and provide responsive to be responsive to this situation. Have you seen any agenda changes in the last months, in the last 18 months? Maybe we can say 12, 18 months. Any change, consistent change?
Of course, some of the changes that I have seen are related to the regulation and how those products that are accessible to people now have changed. The perspective had changed on this. So we have to remember that at the beginning of the pandemic situation, the main challenge was testing, diagnostic testing, because we were knowing the disease, we were knowing how spread was the virus, and testing people was the main challenge we faced here in the regulatory agency. To be confident on which test would be provided to people and how they can be affordable, it was a challenge. And also, one important thing was that with the lockdown strategies of companies, we had a situation where we couldn't have access to material for the drug production and all of this things needed in order to get medicines ready for people. Then the clinical trials started, and then the main challenge was to have access to the results in order to have products that might be useful for facing the pandemic situation. So we knew a lot of medicines were used for the clinical management of the patient were in shortage all over the world. So this was really a really tough situation that we faced. And then we had this as the clinical trials started to get results for the vaccines, for the products, medicines, antibodies. We started now to change the scenario to offering products that could be useful for facing and battling the pandemic situation. So I have seen that now we are in a situation where we have some available vaccines. Still needed some doses. Still needed some technologies, new technologies, because we have seen a lot of improvements on the needed from the perspective of immunogenicity and booster doses. So studies are going on, and I think that all of this made the situation where the policies that we used to have now are impacted with the perspective that we need to focus on what is really important and what is really managing the risk of products and services offered to our population. We don't have time to lose, so that's why this perspective gives us a new change and a new regulatory landscape in Brazil, and I believe all over the world, because we could never imagine how this could impact not only its health but economy and all of the other aspects of society.
Absolutely, it was such a wise, reflection, insight from your side, Gustavo, because the health system is in Brazil is one of the most respected in Brazil, not system itself, but all the professionals that we export around the world, but in terms of how the economy is being impacted because of the expenses, the costs, and also this that really demand from the government. It also comes to you guys as a healthcare professional, regardless your function and roles, because sometimes the budget just shorten, and you also don't have so many resources to respond promptly as the demand arrives on your desk. But Gustavo, let me ask you something in terms of a therapy that we use in parallel to COVID-19 symptoms. Also, the registration process, you might have been pushed a lot, since we have a lot of companies bombing the markets, offering and asking, submitting new drugs and or existing drugs to the agencies and say, hey, please, this is really works in Asia, and please, it can be also useful in Brazil. So how was your experience in handle your and your staff for sure on handle such pressure of the society, the clinical landscape of people, all those deaths daily, just scaring all over the world. About those new therapies, what are the challenges you guys been through in parallel to the vaccines registration process? Because it's something that happened in conjunction to the vaccine approval, process and submission, right? How was the pressure? How do you handle with that? The new therapies?
The criteria that we are using here in Anvisa in order to approve any medicine or vaccine is an international based criteria. We are participating in a lot of international forums where we discuss what are the requirements for approval of medicines, and that's the criteria we are applying for any of those. And but you are right when you say that we had a lot of pressure from society, from the Congress, from any other party, because whenever you see in the news something that is promising that might help you, how can you not have this immediately? So that's a valid question. That's a pretty valid question. But we try to battle this pressure, or to overcome this pressure, being transparent, explaining how we do it and why we do it. And we have seen a lot of cases of products that were used, and we have seen in the clinical trials that it's not useful at all for treatment of COVID. So this is an example of the importance of fulfilling the scientific requirement and the regulatory requirement before have a decision on approval of a product. So I believe that we are doing great on this. I believe that we have overcome the pressure, being very transparent and explaining the procedures. And I believe that this gave us the possibility to do our job really good. And at the end, the mission of the agency is to protect and promote health in people, in our people. So I believe that different of other, I speak only from Brazil, different of other agencies that I cannot say with more details, but we have seen this pressure in a lot of agencies. It's not different in other agencies where they had products, they had to do a fast review on it. But the pressure for approval without any criteria, this is something that I don't believe we are having anymore.
Excellent. So now we got a question from the audience. I think it's a very interesting question, because we are talking about two big economies, global economies, but also we've got so much in common as we are talking about COVID-19 aftermath. And the question is basically, are there any parallels that can be seen in the situation between UK and Brazil? So the parallels is like any situation, have you guys, Gustavo, with all respect, guys, and Dr. Camila and Gustavo, any income situations or income aspects that you can just share with us? By working from UK, Dr. Camila, and by working from Brazil and Gustavo?
There are definitely parallels between the UK and Brazil. Definitely the dedication and the commitment by the healthcare professionals in both countries, they are exemplary. You hardly complain. We keep on working, and we're working even in dire circumstances, long hours, and then it's like wearing PP, and it's like and also damaging our skin, our face, kind of thing. And we also adapting to new technology as well, very, very quickly. I'm sure that in Brazil that they're also using technology like telephone consultations, online consultations, and also video consultations to provide healthcare to the general public, and hospitals are only limited to very acute urgent cases. Yeah, there are parallels that we can see here. And geographically, yeah, there is a big difference. Brazil is much bigger and much more densely populated, and especially in Sao Paulo, it's very densely populated city. But in London too, it's also a densely populated city. So the lockdown was very, very, important to control the spread of COVID-19, and also to have inequalities too. I mean, there are parallels that can be drawn between both countries. They have inequalities that are even wider between the lower and the socioeconomic status, which is very similar situation that you have in Brazil and also the UK, and also within some minorities as well, and some of the underserved community as well. I mean, the gap, the health inequalities are much bigger, a wider gap. And vaccination too. I mean, the parallels. I mean, the vaccinations that are, we are able to distribute the vaccinations as quickly as we can, and yeah, we also have faced some, some pressures, some, problems from people who don't believe in vaccines. But both countries have adopted a policy that the vaccines are not compulsory, and we only encourage people to be vaccinated. So there are a lot of parallels here. And we also face the same challenges as well, the uncertainties, the unknowns that, that might happen. Hopefully there won't be another lockdown, because I don't think we can cope with another lockdown. So I think, yeah, that those parallels are very, very similar. Those challenges are real and are felt by everyone here in the UK and also in Brazil.
Well, I think I could add in this parallel.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
And I put the perspective of the regulatory agencies. We had just a lot of interactions with MHRA, which is the UK agency, and in these opportunities on discussing how they are doing their job and the procedures for approval and reviewing the safety, efficacy, and quality data on products and medicines, we faced a lot of similar situations. We had the opportunity to exchange some data and some scientific perspectives on how we proceed with the information on vaccines and therapies, and we could see a lot of parallels regarding on how to deal with the situation where government wanted really fast, people wanted really fast. And also one important similar and parallel with the regulatory agency in UK and in Brazil is that the regulatory agency in UK is part now of the ICH, which is the forum, international forum. With the Brexit, they detached from the EMA agency and started to do their own procedures in order to be part of this international forums and having their own assessment. So I believe that in my perspective, they are an agency just as big as ours here, with the same manpower and possibilities of assessment, where we could see a lot of similarities and on how we could rely on each other. So that's why it was a really good and important approximation in this pandemic situation with them.
We are lucky in the UK. Sorry, we are lucky in the UK that we have a very good collection of data collection, because more than 90 of us are registered with GPs, and we are all have our medical notes are all documented in the computer systems. So it's very easy. It's easier to collect any for data collection. So there's any side effects from from the vaccines, for example. example, we can easily, collect the data from the GP's computer data system. So we are lucky in that sense.
Well, amazing. If you guys, as we have just jump on the technology or data-driven decision-making, parameter, it would be great if you guys just tell us a little bit how much technology. We do have some questions for the audience, but we got plenty of time. So if you don't mind, as we have already entered in the data and technology dimension, can you guys just share with us any situation that you have exchanged knowledge or exchanged any other experience with other market or even colleagues or agencies that could be used for or ended up being used during this campaign, during this battle against COVID-19? Do you have any technology associated solution or insight using data experiencing across the last months to share with us, and in any situation that you can share with us by using technology and data that help you guys on your functions?
Of course, a lot of improvements we had to do on this, and I think the first improvement on technology that was really important for us is the possibility of, just like this we are doing here, to have meetings, remote meetings, and this helped a lot to get access to data and to information from the clinical trials and from the data that we needed as regulators. So this is the first improvement that was really important. And another thing that we are using right now is, of course, with limited experience, but we are seeing a lot of artificial intelligence to trial information to be analyzed by us, or to modeling the simulation that we are using, that we are analyzing in order to predict the behavior of medicines and products and vaccines. So we have seen a lot of this in silico tools being used to optimize the way we get access to medicines, and also to speed the conduction of studies. So I would highlight this too. But of course, there are a lot of other administrative tools that we see as promising in order to make our job faster and with more quality.
And in the UK, because we have a national system for every single patient to document with their GPs. So we are able to measure the prevalence of long COVID illness. So anyone who's got long COVID illness, we can document the incidence onto the system, and then nationally we can actually see how many people have actually suffered from long COVID illness. We can also see that how many patients have been referred on further to secondary care for long COVID illness, for example. And not only that, so we also can measure prevalence of chronic conditions like chronic lung conditions, diabetes, chronic vascular diseases. We already have that system already in place. But during COVID, we can actually see how many the prevalence, is it higher or is it lower? Is it because of COVID that we are not actually diagnosing more people with with chronic comorbidities? So these are very important data collection that we can collect to measure prevalence, measure incidence of diseases, and before COVID and after COVID, and also prevalence of cancer, for example. So I think the latest studies of data is suggesting that there are less people who are diagnosed with cancer during the COVID compared to before COVID. So there's something that we need to look at, something that we need to address post-COVID, now that we are opening up, and we need to improve on our the detection of diseases.
Yes. Yes. Or basically, you guys were just summarizing using artificial intelligence to get some efficiency on decision-making process, or making or checking for some correlations, and also for further as a predictive model help you guys in the near future, right? For the incoming situations, and also avoid some disasters in terms of contagions and also impact on the society itself. Great. Gustavo, we got a question from Brazil and also a question to you from Brazil, and all, I mean, to Brazil marketplace and to in Dr. Camila, but going to Brazil firstly. In Brazil, we can observe that there is a downslope in the curve, both in terms of infection and casualty. So we are just realizing that either infection and casualties, they are cooling down or sloping down. How cautious should we be about this performance? In case you feel comfortable to answer this question, because you are from the regulatory agency, you're not from the Ministry of Health, okay? Are there any reasons for this optimistic? I mean, we have a trend, downtrend to the slope, for infections, and do you believe we can be optimistic?
Well, I'm not an epidemiologist, so I will reserve my restrictions here to my personal opinion. But
right.
We have seen some results from. We believe that we are seeing some results from the vaccination and the expanding the vaccination. It is expected to have a downslope in the curve with that. And of course, we know about the variants of epidemiological interest, and we have. I would take a more cautious perspective, because I have seen those variants, and I have seen some that. We are still having concerns on those numbers. It is not good yet, so that's why. Of course, I have to be optimistic, because I have to have hope. Otherwise, how can we go through all of this? But I still would maintain the restrictions and the measures for hygiene and social distancing and all of these measures, because I believe that it is not okay yet.
Yeah, I do believe, personally speaking as well, speaking from the biomedical community, that we need to be very cautious. Yes, optimistic for always, by seeing life as a positive, with a positive perspective. But anyway, the measures they are still on regard to how to contain and also avoid the spread of this virus. So anyway, I do believe we need to keep very cautious. And I think it's going to be taking this consideration. Dr. Camila, do you believe that in the near future, or maybe from now on, are going to be, are going to need to get vaccinated yearly or in a regular basis, since we have a new normal of the epidemiology landscape? What's your opinion?
Yeah, and we are able to deliver a very successful vaccination program, and it's all been done through primary care. As you said, every one of us are registered with a GP, so we can actually do it in stages. So we target the vulnerable ones first, and then slowly we go on to the cohort of those who are 70, and then 50 to 70, and then we go on to 40 and below. And of a total population of 62.4 million people in the UK, 72% had 2 doses, and 78.3% had already first dose administered. So this is a it's very good news. And we are now also now starting to provide a third booster for those who are over 50, for healthcare workers, and for the very vulnerable. We're also starting to provide vaccinations for 12 and 16 as well. So vaccination is probably the only way out of this pandemic, if you ask my opinion. And I know some people do not believe in vaccination, but the number of people who are actually admitted now in hospitals, 90% of those hospital admissions are those who are not vaccinated. So please bear in mind that this is, this is happening, and my message is, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your family, for your friends, and do it for the wider population.
Yes, for the good of your loved ones, for the good of our community, for the good for the yes, absolutely, and also taking advantage of your brilliant reflection, insight, Dr. Camila, but for sure, Gustavo, feel free to also contribute. How have you approached the challenge to care of minority communities? I think you have partially answered during the pandemic, but in terms of practical actions or initiatives, because we are much stronger when you work together, right? Collectively.
Yeah.
Can you share with us any challenge in how you overcome or initially tackled these minorities in terms of community? I mean, we're talking about minorities in general, but share with us some situation that you contribute and also help with your staff or even lonely,
Yeah, so as I said, we are lucky. Our collection data is quite good. So during the pandemic, we're able to demonstrate that there are more deaths within the Black, Asian, and ethnic minorities. So we act on it. So we actually try to act and to reduce health inequalities within this population. And this population suffer from more incidents of diabetes, some incidents of cardiovascular disease, and also lower socioeconomic status. So so government is actually now trying to address this and trying to find more innovative ways to actually to provide a better healthcare for these ethnic minorities. And we are doing it. We are actually addressing it, and we are aware that there are health inequalities that's happening. And the challenge is still there, but
the challenge are still existing. Yeah, they are far away to get solved, but we do need to contribute somehow, right?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is that the future healthcare, for whatever it is, the most important thing is preparedness and careful planning and more resources. So we need to invest more innovative healthcare strategy and encourage improvements that will benefit people who use health and social care. So innovative ways, we need to find more innovative healthcare ways. And innovation does not mean that it's got to be expensive. So innovation can be cost effective. Like we are now, what we are doing now is actually moving, care for chronic conditions and comorbidities. We're moving away from secondary care and into primary care, so that it will be better managed in primary care, and also more holistic and also more cost effective as well. So these are one of the innovative things that we are doing, and it does not mean that innovative means like it is going to cost more money. So it can also be cost effective as well.
Amazing. Well, before I jump to the next question, we do have some amazing questions just getting incoming in our chat box. Undoubtedly, it's important to take into consideration the new, strain, Delta strain or Delta variant. And what do you guys' opinion in terms of these, continuous mutant genes or mutant strands that are coming? And how do you see, not a solution, but how do you see the best way to tackle, the best way to battle this, possible new incoming strands, new incoming variants? What's you guys' perception and opinion? In general speaking, Gustavo speaking from the perspective of regulatory agency, and you, Dr. Camila, speaking from your practicing. in regard to the variant?
First, we have to highlight that variants are there. We have more than 20,000 variants, but not all of them are of concern. And though the Delta variant is one of concern, and in my view, in my perspective, I understand that until we don't have the management of the, at least the serious and the symptomatic cases, it's going to be still a concern. So that's why what we do is that whenever a variant of concern is there, we ask the manufacturers of the vaccines to test vaccines and medicines also, because we have antibodies, we have other products, antiviral products approved here, like remdesivir. And so we ask all of them if they can provide us tests showing that this new variant is still susceptible of the action of the product and the variant. So this is one important data that we collect to some specific tests of neutralization of the variants. And with that, we feel confident that at least this product may have some important work on battling this variant. But I believe that what is the future is that if we have a situation like this, probably we have a situation where we have to do constant vaccination, and we have to be prepared for this, to have vaccines available and updated every year, just like influenza. But it's still early to have conclusions. It's now only perceptions and hypotheses. So that's why in the discussion of booster doses, we are collecting data on how this, if and when, are the most appropriate data for a mass booster dose administration. And we expect that this variants of concern lowers their spread. But this is an expectation that comes with the amplification of the vaccination, and also to have more products available to very fast administration. So this is what I think.
I totally agree with you, Gustavo. I mean, there are 20,000 variants in here, so it's like impossible to know which one is going to cause more concern than the other. But you're quite right, the Delta variant is causing concerns at the moment. Yeah, and we don't know how it's going to affect the COVID-19 pandemic. But the good news is that, at least in the UK, we have vaccinated about 80% of the population. And what we are seeing is that although the infection rates are still high, we are not seeing increased admissions to hospitals. So that's good news. And then the ones who have been double vaccinated, even they have COVID, they have lesser, milder symptoms. And this is what we're experiencing at the moment. And also the good thing is that, that's a good thing about being double vaccinated. We are seeing patients with milder symptoms, and the ones that actually you could see that the death rates have also gone down, compared to when the pandemic was at its peak. So that's one good news that we are seeing. And unfortunately, the COVID deaths that we are seeing now, majority of them are the ones who are unvaccinated. So I think that vaccination is working, and so I think. So that's one good news that we're seeing in this new picture of the pandemic era.
Okay, amazing. So one last question, maybe, because in respect to you guys' time and availability, people in general, in public in general, they are much not reluctant, but they are afraid on expose themselves to the on taking public services or even going to concerts or wide open and with people in situations like soccer match and concerts and a confined space. Do you guys think as is a real concern to the population as we are still going through this outbreak, COVID-19 outbreak, to expose themselves in public? Do you think it's still a concern? For sure, it depends on the reality of each country, but you guys have any opinion on this exposure on public in general? How do you see that situation? Because people are also privated to having a past normal life standards, and how you see this exposure nowadays? I mean, maybe not as as your role at Anvisa or NHS, but in terms of expose yourself in public. Difficult question, right?
Well, in the UK, things are actually almost like normal. Well, not quite, but 80% of normal, because shops are open, restaurants are open, and then like you don't need to wear a mask anymore, and you only need to wear a mask if you go to using public transport in the tubes, for example. And also, like I see the tube, can think like many people are not wearing a mask anymore, and but we're not seeing any increased incidence of people who've been admitted in hospitals. And also a lot of public events, we are slowly actually holding large public events, and we're not seeing any increased incidence of COVID-19 hospital admissions. And so next on Sunday, there will be the London Marathon. So it'll be quite interesting to see what's going to happen after that, and yeah, so we have not actually opened up for big sporting events yet. Stadiums are not open yet. So we'll see. But I think that the concerts, indoor concerts, are going to happen in December.
Well, in my perspective, I also agree what Camila told us. What is our expectation here is that although there is some public exposure, that some protocols for maintaining a social distancing and mask usages and hygiene of hands, that those are available, and that because we know that this is a virus that are spread by air. So with this knowledge, we know how the mechanism works. So, and we know that being exposed to people that are coughing near to you or speaking near to you might provide you contamination. So we cannot deny this. So we have to have ways to minimize this contamination. So that's why I believe that opening restaurants, opening all of the establishments, it is a situation where it is possible when we have these possibilities to lowering the possibility of getting contaminated.
Yeah, it also depends on the context you are going through, the measures, how people also behave. Is not a simple question to answer. And finally, Gustavo and Dr. Camila, do you guys have any question to each other? I talk too much, very well myself. I just overtalk all the last 60 minutes. But do you guys have any question particularly to each other? Forget about myself, okay? You guys are the stars on today.
No, I don't have any question for Gustavo. Yeah.
Oh, it was great to have Camila here and sharing the perspective. It was just an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
Very good.
I think we got one question right. Dr. Gerson to Dr. Camila, right? It's about allergies and vulnerability. Do we have still time to address to her?
Yeah, a very short answer. There's no
Cool.
medical, there is a very short answer to this. There is no medical evidence to say that those who suffer from allergies are more vulnerable to COVID-19. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, since they are more, okay. Yeah, understand. All right. Any question for GLIP, for Dr. Gerson, Professor Gerson, that gave the opportunity to be today? This is such an honor. You have any? You are on mute.
Well, this has been very enlightening, and we are honored to have the three of you here with us today, with this stellar group of people who are directly involved with the issue. And also, thank you very much for all your contribution, not only to this live, but also to patients and to citizens around the globe. We hope to be able to have you here in 2022 at the University of São Paulo personally. We generally transform our lives into events towards the end of every cycle with a publication, and we would be very honored to hopefully we'll be back to some sort of normality by 2022, and would be indeed a joy to have your presence here. But we have your presence here today, so I would like to emphasize that too. Not only us, but all of those who have been watching us via our YouTube channels. This will become available in USP's libraries, and as a reference for ongoing and future research work, and also for the general public. So the Global Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution at the University of São Paulo would like to dearly thank Felipe Daubel, Gustavo Mendes, and Dr. Camila Kamarudin for sharing your time with us today. And until very soon. Thank you
very much.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Amazing. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, Camila. Thank you.